It's all about moths. I'll be talking about some animals which I'm extremely fond of, our fabulous moths. Now, the talk should last for about 50 minutes, but I've been putting it together today. It may last for about 4 hours, the way it looks, but hopefully I won't rattle on too much. Hopefully we'll be out of here by next Tuesday. There's also the Q&A function at the bottom there. Now, let's see if that's working. There you go. People are saying hello. So you can leave your comments and questions down there. I haven't actually worked out how I'm going to do the Q&A yet, because usually at the end, I'm the guy asking the questions. So we'll see. Hopefully, if there's time at the end, I'll answer your questions. If not, I can answer them on the website tomorrow. All right, let's click on that. Right. And hopefully at the end of the talk, you'll all donate to the Wildlife Trust. We've been overwhelmed by the response we've had to these webinars. People have been absolutely, people love them, it seems. Some lovely messages I've received. So thank you for your kind messages. And thank you, of course, for your donations. We offer these for free because we think it's, we're pleased we can do this during this challenging time, but it'd be nice if you could donate as well. So hopefully, if you enjoyed the talk tonight, you can donate at the end. Anyway, I'll get on with the talk. So there's me. If you don't know me, just want to introduce myself. I'm the guy on the right in that picture. Spent most of my life wishing I was the guy on the left. But I was the senior community wildlife officer for the Wildlife Trust. I've been there for 10 years, working there for almost a decade at the Wildlife Trust. But I got a new job. Last week. So I'm now head of community action for wildlife. Not sure what that means yet, but I'll find out in the coming weeks, no doubt. Now, I've been doing lots of work around the county. I do lots of writing around various magazines. I'm sure some of you may know me from writing in your parish magazines or some of the county magazines. And this is a centre spread of me here from the West Sussex Gazette, I think, a while back. People laughed at me in this picture. They said, "Why are you standing like that? It's a strange way to stand." As well, that's the way I've been standing since 1974. I've been standing like that. That's just the way I stand in photographs. I'm quite proud of that little stance we've got going there. And there's me now. When I was a boy, just a bit of background. When I was a boy, I was obsessed with Star Wars. You can see my Star Wars pillow there. Obviously, I've been out partying hard that night, probably 1978 or something, I think. But you can see on the wall behind me, I have my Birds of Britain wall chart. So my two passions there, Star Wars and seabirds, it seems. And I just found some notebooks the other day, some of my early notebooks. It was 1982 here, so I was about 11 years old or so. And there's me seeing some Iceland gulls and red-breasted mergansers. Wait a minute, my wife's shouting at me. You just lost the sound? Wait a minute. Sorry, I got. If you can hear me, just make a note if you can hear me in the comments there, because my wife is just shouting through the door. She can't hear me. Can you hear me now, Claire? You just can you hear me now? But everyone can hear me. Anyway, sorry about the interruption there. She probably unplugged the speakers or something. Anyway, yeah. So when I was a young lad, I was obsessed with bird watching, and really, it's only recently I've got into moth trapping and moths. I think I realised not too long ago that the problem with birds is birds are they're always too far away. Birds are always really far away, aren't they? You end up having to walk around sort of estuaries in the middle of winter, and you're looking at a little dot on the horizon over there. But with moths, things come nice and close. You get really close to moths. You really live with the moths, you know. So yeah, I think about 15, 20 years ago, I became a bit of a moth convert. Right, let's. Here we are. So now, one thing I'm not though is a moth expert. Now, I have been referred to that a few times. I'm definitely not an expert at moths. I think I prefer to be called a moth enthusiast. I much prefer that. It's a much gentler term. But saying that, even though I'm not a moth expert, I have seemed to manage to end up on TV talking about moths. And well, how I got there, we'll find out later on. I've also been in a few newspapers. Around the county. I gave a talk in Lewes a few years ago, and they referred to me as a boffin. And I'm not a boffin either. So, also because of social distancing tonight, please ignore the second line of text in that paragraph there. That's That's not happening this evening. So here we are, the Moths of Sussex. Right, let's. How does this all start? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to talk. Basically, tonight's talk really is a very general talk, very basic talk about the moths of this county. Fantastic moths we have in Sussex. So hopefully, some of you may know about moths, but some of you may be just starting out and want to know a bit more. So it really is aimed as an introduction to the wonderful moths of Sussex. I'm looking to highlight the amazing diversity of species we have here in the county. Some incredible, incredible species we have here. And hopefully some of you are going to fall in love with moths. Now, if you're not in love with moths at the start of the talk, hopefully you will be by the end. And maybe some of you may even start to survey moths in your garden, even consider buying a moth trap. So now, I notice I already have 168 comments there, but so it's going to be a bit of a problem trying to find some questions. Now, we don't have time for questions at the end. What I have done, though, is I put together a web page at the end. So when this website, when this webinar ends, sorry, you should go to a website, and there you'll find lots of information about moths in Sussex. You'll find information about some of the best books and the best field guides, some information about how to start surveying moths and moth trapping. And there's lots of other videos that we've made at the Wildlife Trust. They'll be there as well, and some information on how to help moths in your garden. So that's all going to be waiting for you at the end of the webinar. But the question I'm always asked, I thought I'd answer it first, is what is the difference between a butterfly and a moth? Well, people think that butterflies come out in the day and moths come out at night. Well, that's mostly true. Most of our moths come out at night, but here's a photo I took on the South Downs in the middle of the day. There's a butterfly, a large skipper, right next to a moth, a 6-spot burnet. So that's not a difference between butterflies and moths. Now, some people say butterflies are very colourful and moths aren't colourful. Well, there's a butterfly and there's a moth. So that's wrong as well. And there's all things people have told me that butterflies have blobby antennae and moths don't. But really, there's no real difference between butterflies and moths. There's no sort of scientific difference between butterflies and moths. The truth is that over the years, we've kind of been obsessed with butterflies. We put them on tea towels, we put them on mugs, we put them on our tattoos, and some of us have written books about them. But we've been obsessed with butterflies. We've kind of largely ignored the moths. But the truth is, they're all the same thing. They're all parts of the order Lepidoptera. Now, Lepidoptera, it comes from the word lepidos, meaning scale, and pteron, meaning wing. Because if you look closely at butterflies and moths, you'll see these lovely patterns on the wings, all created by thousands and thousands and thousands of little tiny scales. Now, in the UK, there are over 2,500 different species of Lepidoptera. Only 59 of those are butterflies. So most of the Lepidoptera in the UK are actually moths. Now, here's the families of Lepidoptera. I want you to revise these because there'll be a test at the end. Not really, not really. These are the butterflies. The red ones are the butterflies. We're going to take those out for now. We'll talk about moths tonight. Let's get rid of the butterflies. And we're left with the moth families. Now, even within the moth families, you can make a bit of a sort of, you can make a split. There's the macro moths and the micro moths. Now, the macro moths, well, they're the big ones. Okay, they're the big ones you sort of see are more noticeable. The micro moths are really tiny. Now, there's loads of them, but they're easy to miss. But this being moths, that rule doesn't always work because some of the macro moths are actually smaller than the micro moths, and some of the micro moths are bigger than the macro moths. So again, it's a difference which doesn't really have any scientific basis. Now here's some of the micro moths, and there's thousands of them. They're amazing little insects, incredible life cycles, incredible ecology, some beautiful patterns, just amazing little things. We won't talk about micro moths tonight. I'm going to talk about the larger moths, the macro moths of Sussex. So we'll get rid of those, the micro moths in red there. And we're left with 14 families of macro moth in Sussex. And thank you to Bob Foreman at the Record Centre who did some number crunching today. And there's been 1,939 moth species recorded in this county. That's quite a lot, considering there's 2,500 in Britain. We do pretty well here in Sussex for moths. We have fantastic habitats. Of course, we have the South Downs, we have the heaths, the woodlands, and of course, we're just generally the best county in England. So we should do well for most things. So we'll go through the different families. I'll give you a very quick tour this evening of the moth families of Sussex to show you some of my favourites and tell you a few stories along the way. So there they are. I'll spend a bit of time just staring at this slide. It took me about 20 minutes to put together this evening, but there's the 14 moth families of Sussex, and we're going to start, where should we start? Well, we'll start with these guys. These are the Geometridae. Now the Geometridae, there's 258 species in Sussex, and these are moths with broad wings for low energy flights. So they tend to flap. They're quite flappy, these moths. And the caterpillars are called loopers or inchworms. Now, is there any Danny Kaye fans out there? If you're a Danny Kaye fan, leave it in the comments, because I'm a big Danny Kaye fan. There he is in Hans Christian Andersen. And if you're a Danny Kaye fan, you may recall he sings a song about the inchworms measuring the marigolds in that film, and that's what loopers do, or these caterpillars do, because this is how they, you probably see these caterpillars around. They sort of move their head forward and they move their sort of stomach up, and then they bring their bum forward as well, and they sort of move along. And as they do, they measure the marigolds, as Danny Kaye said. In fact, Geometridae means earth measurer. Now, these geometrid moths, when they land, they tend to land with their wings spread out. So if you've got a moth in your kitchen window with its wings spread out flat, it could well be one of the geometrids. A lot of comments just came in. Hopefully there's lots of Danny Kaye fans putting their opinions down there. So that's a lovely blood vein there, with a red line going through its wing. And this is another of my favorites, the Brussels lace. Now, as we go through the talk tonight, some of these moths have incredible names as well. A lot of Victorians name some of these moths, have some very fanciful names. There's a Brussels lace there. And a moth which I used to see when I lived near Eastbourne, the clouded magpie. Now, as you can see, if you go back, a lot of moths, of course, spend their time in the daytime, kind of camouflaged against trees. So a lot of them are quite sort of brown with these quite strange patterns on them. But some moths, like the clouded magpie, well, they pretend to look like a big splodge of bird poo. It turns out nothing eats bird poo, which is fair enough. And so if you look like bird poo, there's a good chance you're going to survive. Now, this isn't the most bird poo looking moth we're going to see tonight. There's a real bird poo looking moth coming up. But the clouded magpie, it's quite a rarity in Sussex, but one of my favourites. Now, this is the beautiful carpet. There's quite a few moths with the name carpet, not because they eat your carpets, because they were named after the Victorians named them after the very elaborate carpets which were in vogue at the time. Here's a maiden's blush. You can just make out her blush cheeks on the moth there. And this is me getting a train at Berwick Station, going to Lewis for the day. And on the wall there was another of my favourite moths, the large emerald. Now there's a large emerald there. You can see those wings spread out and a fantastic bright green colour. So hopefully tonight, if any of you think that moths are a bit drab and boring, hopefully some of the slides tonight will change your mind. But this one's certainly a stunner. And well, I thought I'd deal with this early on in the talk, because this is the Sussex Emerald, a moth named after our great county, of course. Now, as some of you know, this is a bit of an issue, this moth, because here's a list of English counties where the Sussex Emerald breeds. Yeah, it's only really breeds in Kent. We don't really have much confirmed breeding of the Sussex Emerald. It does occur here sometimes. It hops over the border, but we need to get this moth back in our county. Basically, this has been a bit of an issue for Sussex moth fans for quite some time now. The good news is that recently down at Rye Harbour, my friend Barry and Chris down there have been recording the Sussex Emerald in their moth traps. Now, what we need to find though is their caterpillars. Now, if Barry and Chris down at Rye Harbour, if they can find some Sussex Emerald caterpillars feeding down there, then that means the moth is back in Sussex, and that's going to be a real cause for a celebration. I'll be down there with Barry and Chris with a big bottle of champagne. Okay, that's a Blencowe promise, Barry. If you're listening tonight, if you find some Sussex Emerald caterpillars in 2021, I should be rushing down to Rye Harbour with a bottle of fizz for you. bottle of cheap fizz, mind you, but a bottle of fizz nevertheless. And while we're on the topic of our county shame, here's another one. Now, we haven't got the Sussex Emerald, and here's another moth named after Lewis in Sussex. But unfortunately, this has been extinct in Britain since 1961. It was a moth that was found near Lewis and took the name of the town. And due to its loss of habitat in the woods just north of Lewis there, it hasn't been seen in Britain since 1961. So there's a bit of any moth, it seems, that's named after Sussex or a town in Sussex seems to have, doesn't have a good shot at life. Anyway, now, as I say, some of these moths look like bird poo. Some of them look like bits of wood. But I remember a while ago, someone pointed out that this moth here, the waved umber, I forgot who it was now. They said to me, it looks like Des Lynam. And now every time I see this moth, it does remind me of Des Lynam. You need to sit back from your computer screens a bit, but you can just about see that, can't you? You can see it's got a moustache anyway. I'm not entirely sure what being camouflaged as Des Lynam does to helps you to do in life, but anyway, now these moths, the thorns, are absolutely stunning. Now, some of my favourite moths are the thorns, and this is the canary-shouldered thorn here, which always reminds me of those little Easter decorations you put on the cakes. You know, those sort of things there. Really bright yellow little thing, really fluffy. And one of my favourite moths is this beauty, the purple thorn, with those lovely lunar crescents in its wings. Another stunner. Look at that one there, border beauty. And the elegant swallowtail moth. I had quite a few of those in my garden this year. And probably in my top 5 in Sussex is the orange moth. So the Geometridae are those big moths, those big wide wings. As we've seen, some very beautiful moths in there. Where are we going now? Okay, let's try these, the Zagenidae. Now, these are the Forester and Burnet moths. There's only 6 species in Sussex. There's not too many in Britain. There's the New Forest Burnet, which is found in Scotland. So I don't know why it's called the New Forest. And also there's a transparent Burnet, but I've never seen one. But I have seen lots of these. The 6-spot Burnet. Now, this is a photo taken in my garden. Now, if you go for a walk on the South Downs in the summer, you may see lots of these black and red moths, and they're day-flying moths, whizzing around and feeding on the flowers. So these are 6-spot Burnets. And there's also a 5-spot Burnet. But also in Sussex, we have 3 species of Forester. Now, these are beautiful iridescent green moths. Again, they're day-flying, and you find these up on the South Downs. A great place to look for these moths is at Malling Down, Sutherham, or Seaford Head. Now, a lot of moths have very elaborate antennae. Now, the males tend to have more feathery antennae than the females. There's a reason for that, because it helps the male to find the female. Now, let's find a female Forester moth. There she is. There's a female Forester moth. Now, if she wants to try and lure in a male, she has to try and she goes out. She gets there she is. Let's say looking her best for the male, but she can sit around and not find one. So what she does is splash on a nice bit of perfume. Now, this perfume or her pheromones are extremely strong. Now, if you're a female Forester, there you go. There's a smell wafting through the air. If you're a female Forester, you could be way in the bottom of this is Malling Down Nature Reserve here. Now, you could be way at the back of Malling Down Nature Reserve. You can release your pheromones. They could carry on the wind all the way through the valley, and the male Forester moth could smell them in the wind. He could sense them on his antennae, and he could trace them back there and find you. So a lot of moths will lure in a partner with their pheromones. Now, speaking of which, here is the Saturnidae. Now, the Saturnidae, there's only 1 species in Britain, but it's a good one. It's a really good one. Now, it reminds me, I went for a walk. I was leading a walk on Iping Common. It's a public walk on our nature reserve over there near Midhurst. I was doing a walk there many years ago. It was absolutely pouring rain. I didn't think anyone was going to turn up. And I was in the car park, and about 5 minutes before the walk started, a woman came over and she said, "Oh, I'm here for the walk." And it was pouring rain. I said, "I tell you what," I said, "if I give you £5, will you go home? That means I just don't have to get out of the car." And she was thinking about it. And then suddenly a car pulled up with with a guy in there with 3 children. And she said to me, she goes, "This is going to cost you." So they came on the walk as well. And even though it was wet, even though the wind was howling in the middle of the summer, it was a fantastic day because I saw something which I've always wanted to see since I was a little boy. In fact, I didn't see it first. The other little boys saw it first. They said, "Wow, it's an incredible caterpillar over here." So I raced over and pushed them out of the way. And there was indeed an incredible caterpillar there. It was an amazing looking thing. Look at this strange thing. Now this caterpillar, it's all green and with pink spots and all spiky. This caterpillar is the caterpillar of this incredible moth. This is the emperor moth. There's the male emperor moth there. Look at that, amazing. A big moth with those big eye spots on the wings. And you imagine if you're a predator, if you stumbled upon this moth, I always think it looks a bit, if you turn it upside down, it looks like a cat or something. And imagine being a bird and seeing that, you'd probably be startled and scared off. But as we can see the emperor moth there, a lovely picture by Bob of, you can see of an emperor moth, those incredible feathery antennae. Now these antennae can really pick up the scent of a female. Here's the female emperor moth. She's a bit bigger and a grayer color, but she must really let off some pheromones because apparently the emperor moth male can sense her. He can sense her pheromones on the air from miles and miles away. I was reading a paper last night which they claimed 11 kilometers. He can, which I can't believe. That seems a bit, but you know. So imagine a female emperor moth at Woods Mill letting go her pheromones, and a male moth at Hove train station sensing them on the wind and chasing them all the way to find his partner. That seems far-fetched, but it's amazing if it's true. Now, where's next? Okay, now here's, this was when things get a little bit strange when it comes to moths. These are the Sussexidae. Now, these are the clear wings. And, well, they've got clear wings. So these are moths with clear wings. They're day-flying moths. And they look like wasps and hornets. Now, there's 10 species in Sussex. Incredible little things. Now, you know Charlotte, who joins us on the Nature Table Live? Well, she works for the Wild Call Service, where she answers all your questions and queries. And a couple of years ago, she got a phone call from someone saying, there's Charlotte there. Charlotte's hard at work there. There she is. She got a phone call saying, I'm attaching I've got a photograph. Sorry, sent an email, sorry. So I'm attaching a photograph I took today of what I thought at first was a hornet. So here's the photo. And that's fair enough. If you thought that was a hornet, it looks pretty much like a hornet, but that's not a hornet. That's actually the very rare hornet moth. Now you see those sort of yellow bands, the clear wings. Look at that, an incredible hornet mimic. Of course, now by pretending to be a hornet or a wasp, you kind of deflect some predators who are probably scared of getting stung. Now these insects, these moths don't sting. They can't harm you at all. But they are pretending to be something that can sting. In fact, this moth was really rare, and Bob at the Record Centre identified it, and he got his face in the paper. This is from his daughter Phoebe's Instagram account. Look, that's my dad. I love that. Very proud daughter you have there, Bob. There's also lunar hornet moths in the county. But lots of the clear wings, look at this, little tiny sort of black and yellow species. This is the sallow clearwing here. The six-belted clearwing. In fact, I found one of these on my doorstep. Well, not actually on my doorstep, just a few steps from my door in my wildflower meadow in my front garden 2 years ago. I'm really pleased with. Now, these are day-flying moths, and they whiz around really fast, look like hornets, look like wasps. So it's hard to spot them, but there is a way of finding them. Now, the way you find clear wings, the way you attract them is by writing a check for about a £5 or so. And you send a check off to some guy in Norfolk, and he sends you a little pouch. And in that pouch, you've got a little bung. And on that bung, he tells you, is the pheromone smell of the female clearwing moth. You've got to tell him what species you're after, and he tells you that he's impregnated this little bung. I get out of the bag. This little tiny bung here. Where are we? Over here. That little tiny bung has been impregnated with the scent, or sorry, the pheromone scent, the pheromone smell of the female. Now, I can't smell anything, but and what you do, you take it out to where you want to do your survey, and you hang it in a tree, and you sit and stare at it for 5 hours and nothing happens. And you think probably there's a guy in Norfolk somewhere who's probably laughing, selling me a bit of rubber for $4.95. However, they do work because a few years ago, a new clearwing was found in the county, the raspberry clearwing. My neighbor had loads of raspberry plants in her garden. So I sent my check off, I ordered a raspberry clearwing lure, and it arrived in the post, and I thought I'd give it a try. So I walked into my neighbor's garden. Now, there'd only been a few raspberry clearwings ever recorded in Sussex. So I opened the envelope and had my little pouch inside. Now, I reckon I took this little bung about, I don't know, about 2 or 3 centimeters out of the pouch here, and a raspberry clearwing landed right on it. Incredible. So I have a picture of raspberry clearwing here just to show you what it looks like. There we are. So these things do work, and it just shows you how powerful they are as well, because literally within seconds of me taking it out of the bag, a raspberry clearwing flew in. So fantastic. It was good news for me. Probably not so exciting for the male raspberry clearwing, who probably was looking for a female. What he found was a hairy guy with a little bit of rubber bung in his hand. So they're the clearwings. Now the Lasiocabidie. Now these are 9 species in Sussex, 9 species, not big family. And these are medium to large moths, and also, like the clearwings, a day flying. Now there's the oak eggar. Now some of you may have seen these. These are big moths. You do see them in gardens and parks around Sussex. There's another picture there by Bob, and a lovely picture. Oh, that's a picture I took. So this is my picture here. This is an oak eggar. I took this picture at Abbott's Wood near Helsham. I don't know if it's me again. To me that looks like a Highland cow to me. I don't know. Is that just me? It looks like a Highland. I don't know. But the lovely and very furry oak eggar. And there's a lovely picture here by Nigel Kemp. Look at that. Look, I'm giving a bit of a hug there. Well, it's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day soon. So I put some romantic moth slides in for you tonight. If you're on the South Downs, or certainly on some of the heathlands around Sussex, in the summer you may see a very long, very hairy, black-banded caterpillar climbing around or crawling around the ground. This is the caterpillar of the fox moth. These are large day-flying moths. I remember seeing my first fox moth. I chased it to try and get a photo. I ran around, almost had a heart attack. Very fast day-flying moth you see around the South Downs and around Ashdown Forest and other heathlands. But it's not my favorite, because my favorite moth of all the moths in Britain is this little guy. Look, this is the Lappet. Look at that thing. That is an absolutely bizarre insect. Now this is I absolutely love them. Absolutely love these moths. These are just, I mean, they're just so weird. I mean, when I found my first one in my garden, I put it on this post here, and I stared at it for days and days. Well, not days and days, but it probably flew off by then. But stared for hours and hours. This is why I don't feel the urge to go on safari to look at giraffes and lions and things, because there's so much incredible wildlife hidden in your back garden. But it's a weird thing. So just to make sure the head end is at the right, that the pointy end's the head end, and its wings are folded in a really strange way to really camouflage its body shape amongst the leaves. I just love them. I don't know why I love them so much. Maybe it's because they remind me of Cornish pasties. I don't know. They look absolutely incredible. But what a thing. What an amazing moth. And also in the same family, there's this guy here, the drinker, which is quite similar. It's got a big, these remind me of the wombles, these guys here. So you see drinkers, and again, they have big hairy caterpillars, which you see. You certainly see, you've got a Woods Mill, certainly. You see plenty of drinker moth caterpillars on the vegetation there. What's next? What's coming next? Okay, well, here's this little family here, the Limacodidae. There's 1,000 species worldwide, most of them actually tropical, but we do have 2 species in Britain, and both of them you'll find here in Sussex. The festoon, the tiny little thing, he's kind of cute. It's quite triangular, a little moth, but they have quite strange caterpillars, like little armored caterpillars there crawling along. And also the other one you find in the county is the triangle. It was pretty triangular and very small. Again, has a very strange caterpillar. Okay, now let's move on to the swift moths. Now these moths are very primitive moths. Now I say they're primitive. They're very short antennae, and they have no proboscis. So a lot of moths have these proboscis. The proboscis is the big drinking straw, which they unravel to take nectar. A lot of moths do all their feeding in the caterpillar stage, and so don't eat when they're adults. The larvae live underground. And there's only 5 species in Sussex. Now the map-winged swift is quite a rare one, but has quite patterned wings. But they all kind of look quite similar. This is quite a larger moth, but the swifts are kind of all on the same theme. Very fast-flying, quite long-winged moths. But there's one real beauty in the family, the ghost moth. Now this is the female ghost moth. They're lovely orange and yellow, a pattern on her wings. But the male ghost moth is again one of my favorites. Look at that thing there. Its wings are so white. It's like someone's Tipexed the moth on the wings there. A real stunning moth. There is that lovely ghost moth. What's him doing there? So yeah, so the ghost moth. Now I've got a little video to show you in a minute. I'm not sure it's going to work, but hopefully it will work. Now ghost moths have some very strange behaviour too. They take part in a courtship display called lecking. Now, if you're a bird watcher, you know that birds like ruff and black grouse are also lecking species. This is where the males will sort of gather and they will have a bit of a dance off and try to lure the females in. There's a bit of aggression involved as well, but basically it's a bit of a disco, and so there you go. It's a bit of a sort of nightclub with the males in the middle, the females on the outside, and the males trying to impress the females with their behaviour, with their dancing. Hopefully, if they've got the right moves, they can find a partner. Now this is where you need to turn the lights down. So if you're at home, if you turn the lights down, we need to get quite dark here, because this is a film I made quite late at night, and so hopefully you can see this. So if you turn your lights down at home, you lean in. Whoop, mind that guy there. Look, if you lean in a bit closer. Now this is. I went on the South Downs one evening. I was walking around. It was a lovely moonlit night, and I found a glade up on the South Downs. As I turned the corner, I saw something I've wanted to see for quite a long time, and that was a dancing ghost moth. Now, hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to lean in. Can you see that? Now you can see the ghost moth. A bit juddery perhaps, but you can see the ghost moth. It's sort of it's almost like it's hanging on an invisible thread, like a pendulum. It just sort of hangs there in the air. I got down on my hands and knees with my old camera. I was trying to get a picture, trying to get a video of this lovely dancing ghost moth. And I was so focused on this ghost moth that I didn't notice that all around, certainly the glade had come alive. There was dozens and dozens of these dancing, brilliant white moths in the glade. I tried to film it. I'm not too sure how well it's come out, but you can just see that. There's just dozens there. All these male moths in their brilliant white outfits, doing all their best moves on the dance floor in the hope that the females would see them. It was really quite eerie, quite an eerie thing to see. In some ways, some people believe that this behaviour, this dancing of these bright white moths in these little woodland glades, may have given rise to lots of sort of stories of sprites and fairies and the will-o'-the-wisp legends. It certainly was almost a supernatural sort of event. One of the greatest wildlife encounters I've had in Sussex, I think. Right, now where are we now? Down the bottom there, look. The Nollidae. These are a small family of quite small moths. Now, most of them, there's 9 species in Sussex. Most of them look like this. I can't believe this. They've got our Sussex. They've got our Sussex Emerald, but we have the Kent black arches here, but they have it as well. But there are a few nice moths in the family. Well, that's a nice moth, but there's new, nice, bright coloured moths in the family. There's the green silver lines, and one of my favourite moth names, the cream bordered green pea. Now here's the Drepanidae. Now there's 16 species of these moths in Sussex. The family is kind of known as the hook tips. And you can see why, because a lot of the moths in the family have these big hooks on the end of their wings. Here's the pebble hook tip. But in this family, there is this bird-dropping looking moth, the Chinese character. Now, there's been so many times I've seen these sat on the edge of a moth trap, and I've really thought it's a piece of bird poo. The robins come over and done a poo on the side of the trap. But it's actually a little tiny moth, little blob called the Chinese character. I guess it's probably named after the symbol, a little Chinese-looking symbol on the wings there. There's also in this family the peach blossom, lovely pink blotches on its wings, and the satin lutestring. Where we go now? Okay, now this is the Erebidine, and the moths. Since I put this talk together many years ago, and since I've done it, all the moths have changed in the taxonomy, so I got a bit confused today. I had to rearrange the talk. But this is this family here has quite a few varied different moths in it. There's the tiger moths, the snouts, the ermines, the fanfoot moths, and the footman moths are in this family. Now, there's a few footman moths in Sussex. They're called footmen after the long sort of capes they had, the footman on a stagecoach. This is the red-necked footman, once quite a rare moth in the county, but now spreading across Sussex. And a moth I'm sure many of you will be familiar with, the cinnabar moth. Again, a moth you'll see up in the South Downs and in parks and around the countryside of Sussex. Lovely black and red moth, but you may also be familiar with the moth's caterpillars, which are these yellow and black caterpillars you see on ragwort. But also in this family are the tiger moths. See, these are really gorgeous looking moths. There's the cream spot tiger. Lovely from underneath, but also stunning from above. You find these around the coast, certainly around the coast, around Eastbourne and Seaford, I see these quite a lot, but they are found inland as well. And here's the garden tiger. Now, garden tigers, absolutely gorgeous. Look at that, absolutely gorgeous. Used to be much more common. So when I was a boy, these moths, I see these moth caterpillars quite a lot. Now these caterpillars, again, I'm sure people will be familiar with these. If you see a really big hairy caterpillar crawling across the path, it's probably one of these, the garden tiger caterpillar, also known as woolly bears. These were quite common decades ago, but the numbers have crashed recently. If you're a fan of the Gruffalo, by the way, you may be interested to know that Julia Donaldson has a new book coming out. I think it's out on June the 24th, I believe, all about the woolly bear caterpillar. She's based the story all on the caterpillar of the garden tiger, the woolly bear. If you read the Amazon blurb, it tells you that it says, brilliantly written and stunningly illustrated, this engaging picture book comes complete with a non-fiction mini book written by a nature specialist. And that nature specialist is me. I've written a little booklet that goes inside Julia's book. So I could claim that Julia Donaldson and myself, I could claim she's my co-author, but that's probably quite a bold claim, I think. But I've written a little book that goes inside the Woolly Bear book, which comes out in June. So any children out there who want to learn more about moths, it'd be a great story to read them and some facts and figures about moths inside. I'm not entirely sure about this nature specialist thing. I'm more of an enthusiast than a specialist, but yeah, it's nice to be called a specialist now and then. Now, speaking of tigers, here is a little story for you. It's all about this caterpillar here. Now, I call this story A Study in Scarlet. Now, I'll give you a bit of background to this story. Back in 1926, back in the early part of the last century, an area of downland between Seaford and Eastbourne was planted up. Now, it used to be lovely open downland there, but they planted it up and made a plantation, and it grew up over the years into a huge forest. Now, I know some of you will know that Friston Forest, between Seaford and Eastbourne on the coast there, about 2,000 acres of quite young forest there. It's a great place for wildlife, great place for moths as well. Now, when was that? I can't see the thing. Let's close that a second. So in 1997, this book came out, The Caterpillars of the British Isles by Jim Porter. It's a great book. Then 2007, this young girl bought this young guy that book for Valentine's Day. But she left the price tag inside the book, left the label on the side of the book. It was 50 quid. It's not cheap, not cheap. So I think yeah, it's quite a nice gift. So I married her. Not just because of that, but certainly it was nice to receive a lovely Valentine's Day present all those years ago. So when I was walking around Friston Forest that autumn. I saw a small caterpillar. I thought, now's the chance to put my new book to use. Now, admittedly, lots of caterpillars are quite they're quite green and quite indistinguishable from each other, but this one here is quite striking. It's yellow and white with spikes. I thought, I'm bound to find it in my book. I went home, I took a photo of it. In fact, I did actually. I went to get a picture. I reached out with my camera, and the thing fell off the leaf down into. And I spent about 10 minutes, probably even longer, scurrying around trying to find that caterpillar again. I couldn't find it, but actually, about to leave, I realized it fell into my cuff. So I took it back out, put it on a leaf. I got a photo. And when I got home, I opened my book, and there it is, Q. Now Q turns out to be the scarlet tiger. Now scarlet tigers actually are very rare in Sussex. They haven't been found breeding in Sussex for almost a century. So I was quite excited, and I phoned the county moth recorder, who was very excited as well. And he said it'll be great to find if they get through the winter and they turn into adult scarlet tiger moths the following year. So throughout the winter, I came back to that ride in Friston Forest, and it had all been churned up, all very muddy, and I hoped the caterpillars had got through. But then in 2008, in April, I was walking around, the vegetation started growing back. It looked great, and as I was walking along, I saw something that really excited me. Now this is frass, this is caterpillar poo, and I was really excited to see it because it meant there could be some big caterpillars around, and indeed there were. These scarlet tiger caterpillars, they had gone through the winter as caterpillars, and they had emerged and were munching away on the nettles. Lovely big thing, look at that. I counted about 46 there, I think, and while I was crouching down in the nettles, a man and his daughter came past and asked me what I was doing, which is fair enough. I looked a bit suspicious. But I explained I was doing a little caterpillar survey, and the daughter got really excited. She's only a young lady, and she helped me out, and she counted about another sort of 20 or 30 because she was a bit shorter than me. So there's loads of them there. So I really hope that some of them will go into the ground and pupate and come out as scarlet tiger moths. And so in the summer, every evening after work, I went up there to try and find the scarlet tiger moths. And every evening I came home disappointed, I couldn't find them. And then one day I was walking through that ride, and I was aware that something was watching me. And there, sat on one of the leaves, was my first adult scarlet tiger moth. Look at that beautiful thing, absolutely gorgeous. I took about 200 photos with my camera, and when I got back and looked at them, only 2 of them were actually in focus because the others, I was so excited, my hands were shaking and they're all a bit blurred. But a lovely moth, and it was great to see they were flying again in Sussex. And of course, being the great moth specialist that I am, I was very proud, of course, to put my dot on a map. Being a naturalist, we love putting our dots on maps. And this is the distribution of scarlet tiger in Sussex in 2008, just one place, Friston Forest, but it was my dot on the map, so I was very proud. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's where I made my mistake. I got a bit too proud, the sin of pride, because my friend Adrian said, we should make a news story out of this. And he put a little news story together, a little press release, had my name in the newspaper, talking about a tiger I found in Friston Forest. So I was quite pleased with myself. I went home, had a glass of tequila, and I sat down, but that's when my trouble started, because I received an email. It said, "Dear Mr. Blencowe, I read in the Eastbourne Herald about a sighting of a scarlet tiger in Friston Forest." I said, "Oh yeah, that's right, that was my scarlet tiger." So I don't know much about moths, but I think I've seen one of these moths in my garden in Eastbourne. It unfortunately died, so I raced over, and indeed, there was a scarlet tiger in this guy's garden in Eastbourne. So I assume it's one of my scarlet tigers that have flown from Friston Forest over into the town. I got back home, I had another email saying that I read your report in the Friday Herald, and I believe I may have photographed one of these moths in Eastbourne. And indeed they had. I had another email. My wife and I saw a scarlet tiger on Eastbourne seafront, and I saw 3 moths in my garden. We saw 2 of these moths in my garden. It seems the moths are everywhere. Wonderful to know that a creature extinct in Sussex is back, and in my garden, people say. It seems the moths are really making a home in Eastbourne. I had this message here. On June the 22nd, my wife and daughter witnessed between 30 and 50 scarlet tigers emerging from the bay tree in my garden. Well, I was a bit embarrassed. I thought they were only found in one little place in Friston. And the people from the newspaper on the phone to me saying, I thought this was a rare moth. So it was a rare moth. And And next thing you know, I was back in the newspaper again. Oh, sorry, that was something else. I had to explain why this moth was suddenly being found all over the place in Eastbourne. So it turns out the scarlet tiger distribution in Sussex in 2008 was more like this. You can hardly see my little dot on the map now. The following year, the moths emerged again in 2009. They were eating people's gardens all through Eastbourne. And also I had reports from Brighton too. People were sending me photographs on their old phones of scarlet tigers taken in the back garden around the Brighton levels and all sorts. In 2009, we found more moths in Eastbourne, Brighton. It turns out actually they were spreading along the coast. And today the moths are still really, Eastbourne is a stronghold for the scarlet tiger, but you do see them in the centre of Brighton, as well as other places around Sussex too. So keep an eye out for that moth, and please let me know if you do see a scarlet tiger. Get a photo on your phone and send it into Wildcall. So where are we going next? Okay, the Cossidine. Now, there's only 2 species in Sussex, but they're beautiful. They're beautiful moths. This one is just gorgeous. Look at that. This is the leopard moth. Always reminds me of Corella de Ville, the leopard moth. Lovely thing. I haven't seen one for a while, but always a highlight when you find one of those in your moth trap. Now, the other may not look so good, but it's an impressive moth. This is a big moth, the goat moth, a real rarity in Sussex, only really found in the very far east of the county, bordering our fens over there in Kent. But the thing I've always wanted to see is a goat moth caterpillar. Now, these things are huge. They're really big caterpillars. Amazing things. They feed inside trees. They feed on inside the heartwood of a tree. Now, as you imagine, there's much nutrients inside a tree, inside the tree there. So they do have to feed there for 3 or 4 years. These things are a caterpillar for 3 or 4 years. They get really big, and then they emerge. And if you're lucky, you'll see one wiggling around as it finds somewhere to pupate. And a few years ago, I was given the directions to a goat moth tree. This is a tree where I was told goat moth caterpillars had been known to be burrowing. And I got there, and indeed I found the holes where they had emerged. You see the size of the holes there, give you an impression how big the caterpillar is. But I didn't find the caterpillar. They smell of, there's a very strong smell of goat, apparently. That's where the goat moth's name comes from. So I spent a lot of time stiffing trees over in the wood there to try and find these caterpillars, but I didn't find any. And every now and again, I get taunted by pictures. This is a picture sent in by Jim over in the Far East. He found 2 goat moth caterpillars over in the Far East in 2019. One was just crawling through a playground at Udimore. So people, you do find very lucky. If you live in that area around Beckley, Rye, Peasmarsh area, you may see these incredible caterpillars. But look at that thing there, look, on its way to, I think the discount card there is actually just to show you a scale. Saying that, I'm not entirely sure how big that discount card is. I'm assuming it's the same sort of size as a credit card, but it could be massive, couldn't it? We don't know. But there's a goat moth there on its way to get some discount on outdoor clothing over there in East Sussex. Now, almost finished our tour of the moths. Where are we going now? The Notodontidae. Now, here they are. These are 23 species, and these include the kittens and the prominents. And these moths have some crazy caterpillars. They're beautiful moths as adults. Here's the Alder Kitten there. Lovely patterns and colours on the Alder Kitten. And the lovely chocolate tip. Now, some of them look like bits of twig, but they're quite convincing, but they're not as convincing as this guy. Now, this guy is this is my party piece. When I go out and work with children and adults, of course, this is one of the things which absolutely amazes them. It is amazing, and it is this incredible moth. Now, this little game here is Spot the Moth. This is a picture I took of the moth. I hope you can all see it there. But you can all see it. Well, that's the moth there in the middle. The incredible buff tip. Now, just look at this. How that moth is so well camouflaged with a bit of broken twig. The colours, and look how that moth just matches the shades of a broken twig. Incredible. So there's the buff tip there. As I say, a real crowd pleaser when you're doing events with the public. And here's another beauty, the Puss Moth. Now, another moth that I always wanted to see as a kid, and you do find them in your moth traps now and again. Always a highlight when you do see one. But what I really wanted to see was a Puss Moth caterpillar. Now, had the privilege of actually being able to watch some Puss Puss Moth caterpillars a few years ago. When they're very small, they look like this, and they're kind of cute. But as they get bigger and they munch and munch on the leaves, they turn into this thing here, which looks like something from another planet. Incredible thing, incredible bright colors. It looks like it's got a big smiley face. That's not a big smiley face, by the way. Its eyes are sort of tucked in here somewhere, down here, its eyes. But it's incredible. It's bright green and pink, and it spits acid. And if you poke it, I didn't poke it too often, but if you touch it, two little streamers sort of come spinning out of its tail there. It is one of the weirdest animals we have in Britain, surely. Even though it's incredible and weird looking and amazing, had to admit I was still a little bit disappointed. Because when I was a little boy, I had this one of these Brooke Bond tea card books, and it was a Puss Moth on the cover. And I always kind of thought they were sort of that big. I always kind of hoped I could, they're kind of about the size of a polar bear, and that they could sort of race cheetahs across the Serengeti. I always kind of hoped I could probably jump on one of those and ride it down Lewis High Street or something. But so it wasn't as big as that, but certainly impressive nevertheless. But when it comes to weird caterpillars, well, this guy, if you watched my video last year on my diaries, I filmed some lobster moths in the back garden. I still have not seen a lobster moth caterpillar, and I would love to see a lobster moth caterpillar because it looks like this, which is just weird, isn't it? I mean, it looks like something you get served in a sort of Portuguese seafood restaurant. It's amazing. I love when I do these talks to young children. I always tell them these things are about 7 foot long, and they come crawling out of the woods at night, which scares them. And I should tell them I'm joking, but I don't always tell them I'm joking. But it's so amazing. So lobster moth caterpillar. If you ever see a lobster moth caterpillar, please give me a phone call. I'll be straight around to get a picture of it. But look at that. Look at that very strange thing. Lobster moths are very common, so there must be lobster moth caterpillars out there as well. So we're almost getting to the end of our family tour. Now here are the noctuids. Now the noctuids are the biggest macromoth family. There are, I think, over 400 species in Britain. 282 species have been recorded in Sussex. These have long wings for powerful flight. When they rest, they hold their wings over their body. So that the geometrids, the other big family, put their wings out. These guys hold their wings back behind them over their body. And there is a lot of them, and all lovely patterns. They all have lovely stories. I don't have time to tell you all about them tonight, of course, but absolutely fascinating. Of course, a lot of them are spending their day camouflaged against trees, so they're kind of brown and sort of these cryptic patterns to hide against trees and leaves. Some lovely moths in the noctuids, though. Here's one of my favorites, the true lover's knot. And the Brighton wainscot. Now, yeah, you've guessed it. If it's got a Sussex place name in the as its name, it's not doing too well. This moth hasn't been seen in Sussex since 1899. It used to be seen around Brighton, hasn't been seen there for a while. Here's a beautiful Y here, but what's it? I can't see it here. What's it gone down here? I just lost everything there. There it is. Look. Beautiful golden Y. Why is it not moving? That's it. Okay, that's all right. Back on track. And the burnished brass. Now, some of these moths, yes, they're very camouflaged and cryptic, but others have these incredible metallic colors on. So there's silver ones, gold ones, brass ones, copper ones, all sorts of incredible colors. The mullein moth here, just love its big Elvis quiff on this moth, one of my favorites. I also love its caterpillars. If you have mullein in your garden, you may see it being munched by these big, fat, yellow and black and white caterpillars. I took a picture of this one over near Friston Forest, and it kind of turned and looked at me. Now, again, I thought I could see a face. There. That's not its face, of course, but I thought I could see a face. And for a while, it really bugged me. I thought I've seen that somewhere before. And then one day I realized where I saw it. I'm pretty sure it's a good match for the screen. One of our most beautiful moths in the county is the Merveille de Jour. Again, another moth which is a real treat to find in your moth trap later in the season. Not too camouflaged against my kitchen furniture, but you put it on a tree, a bit of lichen on a tree, and the moth vanishes. Can you see him there? Where is he? Oh, down there. Bottom right. There he is. So these moths spend a lot of time, of course, hiding from predators in the daytime. So where are we? If we're almost done. Oh yeah, there's one family left. Now, when I do moth events and moth traps, the ones I'm always asked about, of course, are the Slingody. People are always asking me about these because these are the big ones, the hawk moths, the ones people always want to see. 18 species have been recorded in Sussex. Some of these, of course, are migrant moths coming in, but 18 species have been recorded in our county. Some of the resident ones include the very popular hawk moth. This is a great moth to see in your moth trap. It has it puts its front wings to the back and its back wings sort of go to the front. The army surplus coloured lime hawk moth, and flashing its big eyes, the eyed hawk moth. And arguably one of the biggest insects in Britain, depending on which way you measure it, is our biggest resident moth, the privet hawk moth. Beautiful thing. And now I'm sure people who've been moth trapping have seen these, or you've been lucky to see some of these in your garden. But this, it is amazing. It looks like it's something that should be flying around in Costa Rica, not in Haywards Heath. But this is the elephant hawk moth. Beautiful pink and gold species, absolutely stunning. Look at that. And I know you would have seen these out in the garden in the summer. You may see a thing that looks probably bigger than some of the hummingbirds we have, but it looks like a little hummingbird buzzing around. The hummingbird hawk moth. Now this has a huge, long proboscis. Look at the length of its drinking straw. It unfurls that. It goes down into the flowers to sip up its nectar. I'm always impressed with anyone getting a photo of one of these because they move so fast. So well done to Bob for a lovely photograph of the hummingbird hawk moth. But the moth I'd always wanted to see, and for a lot of people, it's on their wish list, is the death's head hawk moth. Now you can see why it's called that because of the scary face it's got on its thorax there. Wow, look at that! It's amazing. These things historically have been a bad omen of pestilence and plagues, and so no surprise during the pandemic year last year. This was photographed over in Cattsfield by Ollie. I've always wanted to see one of these. There's a story about me trying to see one of these, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you another time because I'm doing a talk in a few weeks about nocturnal wildlife. I'll save my death's head hawk moth to then. So you have to wait for a few weeks, guys. Bit of a cliffhanger to find out whether I've ever seen a death's head hawk moth. So that was our very quick tour of moths around the county. Like I say, I want to give you a very quick introduction to some of our most beautiful species, some of my favorite species. But there's, as I say, there's loads of moths in our county, thousands of moths. I just touched on some of them there, but hopefully a nice overview of the diversity of species we have here in Sussex. So people have been asking me to say a few things about moth surveying and moth recording and moth trapping tonight. So I thought I'd say a few things about how you can get closer to moths around your home, in your garden. Now, the first, I started off by something I call dusking. Now, dusking involves getting a net and a head torch. Now, where's my head torch gone? Oh, lost my head torch. Well, I just put a head torch on. I got a little butterfly net, or a big butterfly net. I used to walk around in the garden and look out for moths. I catch them and take them back in the house, look at my book and try and work out what they were. That's how I started looking for moths. But of course, if you don't need to do that, you can just have an outside light. If you have an outside light in your house, I'm sure you notice in the morning, it may attract quite a few moths. So just go out in the morning, you get a little moth ID guide. You may find there's a few moths hanging around the outside light early in the morning. So that's a good place to find them. I always find a good place to find moths. If you ever go camping, is campsite toilets. So usually they leave the lights on all through the night. And so in the morning, I found some incredible moths at campsite toilets. Just a word of warning, walking around campsite toilets and shower blocks with a camera, you need to explain what you're doing really, because it does look a bit suspicious. And I learned that the hard way. Now, if you can't afford a net and a head torch, you could afford some bananas, hopefully. I've got a banana here. I don't know why I bought banana. I'm sure people know what bananas look like, but an old banana, make sure it's an overripe banana. In the autumn, certainly, if you put some slits in the side and put it on a bird table, that lovely sugary smell will lure in some moths. Now, in this picture here, there's quite a few moths. I think this is my friend Ralph's bird table here. But some really old bananas. You put them on the bird table. That's a way of luring in moths. Certainly in the autumn, you get quite a few species. Another way people get moths is something called wine ropes. You get some material, some old bits of string and rope, and you soak them in wine. Now, I've tried doing this quite a few times, and if you ask me, it's a waste of a bottle of wine because it's never worked. And all it does is made a mess. I've got some wine stains all over my shirt and stuff. Give it a try if you want to. I've got some old wine laying around, but moths again. The very sweet smell of the wine will lure moths in. You may find some moths, but it never really works for me. And the other way, which again never really works for me either, but another popular way, certainly used to be very popular, is sugaring. Now this involves making a concoction, a very, very sweet concoction. Again, the sugary smell will draw moths in from a long way away, apparently. And what you need is some muscovado sugar, some black treacle, a can of Guinness, and some very cheap rum. Put some rum in there, and a mystery ingredient. Everyone's got their own mystery ingredient. And what you do, here's me a long time ago. Here's me in the kitchen, and you put all this into a pan, and you start heating it up. Now, what you don't do, a word of advice for you here, what you don't do, a word of warning really, is don't go and read a book in the next room and have a drink, because if you take your eye off that pan, it tends to boil over. But luckily, I had a lovely girlfriend. I can hear her shouting in the other room. Look at that face. Look, not very happy with that. But she may not have been happy, but at least it gave me a chance to go back in and finish my book next door. But so what you end up with is a big bowl of this really sticky, sweet-smelling, sugary solution, and you go out and you pour it on posts and paint it on trees. And the idea is it lures in the moths again with a smell. It never really works for me. I get a few wasps sort of fly into it, but it never really works. But maybe if you've got a post in your garden and you've got some rum and some sugar to spare, maybe give it a try. It's good in the autumn, but give it a try. Let me know how you get on. But really, by far, the best way to get close to moths is by light trapping, by using light to lure moths in. We all know that moths fly towards light. You find one of your windows, you fly around the light bulb in the kitchen, and no one really knows why. There's lots of theories as to why moths do that. Now, there's some theories people think they were flying towards the moon, and some people think that they used it. They thought they're trying to navigate around it. If you ever do a moth trap, you'll notice that some moths will fly straight into the light bulb. Others will land on the mat on the sheet next to the moth trap. Others will go flying round and round. Others just fly straight past and not paying any attention. So no one really knows. Lots of theories. You can probably find those on the internet. Lots of strange theories out there. I don't know. I always say if moths ever start talking, it's the first thing I'm going to ask them. What's the deal with the light? What's the attraction? Now, moth traps come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. I'm saying moth traps. We're not trapping the moths and keeping them. They're spending the night in these moth traps here, and then we let them go in the morning, of course. So and they're all released unharmed, and the moths don't, apart from having a night out inside the traps there, they don't really has no real detrimental effect on the moths. Now you can get these Skinner traps, which if you're handy, you can try and make those at home. You can find instructions on how to make those online. The Robinson traps, basically it's a big bucket with a light bulb in it. It can cost a bit of money, so if you do have some money, they're a few £100 to buy those, but they're kind of bespoke moth traps. Or you can make your own. And that thing at the back there, a Blencowe's Mothmatic, I made that myself with bits and pieces I bought at B&Q and some electrical bits I bought online. It worked really well until my wife fell into it one day in the garage and broke it. She heard that. So you can make your own, but be inventive. They're all based on the same principle of moths flying around towards the light and going inside where they're held for the evening. Now, the problem is with these traps, the Robinson moth trap, in the picture here, is using one of these bulbs. These are mercury vapor bulbs, and these are really bright bulbs. Now, if you're living in a little terrace in the centre of Burgess Hill, it may disturb the neighbours. So you either need to get on very well with your neighbours, or just not like them at all, because you keep them awake at night by putting these traps on. However, the other bulb there in the Skinner trap is an actinic. It's a much less bright, so you can use those. It doesn't get as many moths, but believe me, when you start out moth trapping, you don't want to have a huge load of moths flying into the trap when you're just still learning. Of course, the problem is, let's say it's very, very bright, and if you put certainly I've been trapping it across Sussex over the years. These bright lights can be, firstly, they can be quite damaging, as I found out. So be very careful. Please try and watch health and safety when you're using these bulbs. Make sure you don't stare at the bulb for too long. But they do attract the moths, and they do attract people as well, because I've been out in the woods sometimes, and people have seen this light for miles. They come running over. They thought it's like a crashed UFO or something. So people have been, I think there's a crashed UFO in Friston Forest, and they come and found me. Other people think, of course, there's some rave going on, and they see the light from miles away in the middle of the woods, and they come turning up with a 4-pack of beer to find a middle-aged hairy guy sat there with a few moths. But I've made some quite good friends that way. Oddly enough, I've been to quite a few raves when I was younger, and they also are great for moths, because you end up in a tent at sort of 2 in the morning, and you do find some quite nice moths on the inside of the tent there. I remember watching Orbital once at a festival in Hampshire, and find some quite nice species. Anyway, I'm going off the point. Anyway, so light trapping. Now, the reason I love light trapping is because I used to love Christmas. When I was a boy, I used to love Christmas. And there's me back in 1973 opening all my presents. And I get very excited around Christmas. Look, here's me in 1980 opening my big smile on my face, look, opening my bird books. Now, these days, Christmas ain't the same anymore. Here's me last year at Christmas. Look, that's my present for last year. I got a new head for my electric toothbrush. And I asked for that as well, so it wasn't even a surprise. So Christmas ain't the same anymore. But moth trapping is like Christmas every morning, because there's a trap of moths in your garden, a big box of moths in your garden. You have no idea what's inside. And I come bounding out of my bedroom at 4:30 in the morning. I open the moth trap. You never know what's going to be there. It could be some real surprises. Opening a moth trap up is so exciting. You never know what's going to be under the egg boxes and hidden in the moth traps. You never know what's going to be there. And they're great, of course, at public events. People love coming to see these moth trap openings. Here's an event I did a few years ago over near Lewes. There's a few familiar faces there in the crowd. And the night before, I put a big sheet up, loads of bits of blank paper. And in the morning, I stayed overnight. I camped overnight. And in the morning, we opened the moth trap. I started writing all the names of the moths on the paper. And I soon ran out of space. There's so many moths. And Claire hadn't stayed over. I've been camping. She hadn't stayed over. So I sent her a text saying, I'm doing okay, but I'm running out of paper. And so she bought that, which wasn't actually what I meant. But anyway, opening moth trap. Something I love is it's a shame looking at these pictures now, because something I do every year is moth events for the public and children, especially, of course. I love getting close to these incredible insects. But I haven't done it very much this year. I've done it at all, have I? I haven't. Very sad. This is pictures from a few years ago. Look at that. Look, happy days. Look. But I just love. It's a great way of engaging with children, getting close to wildlife. And I love seeing the faces on some of these. Look at these. Look at that. Look at that. Isabella, I think she's called, that young lady there. Look at that amazing face. Actually, got a quick video here, just to say about a minute long, just to remind me, and just to show you a moth trap opening in action. Yeah, this is a Robinson moth trap here. These cost hundreds of pounds, which is basically a lot of money for a bucket with a lamp in it. But what I'll do, I'll pass them round so you can all see. Right, look at this. Look at this. Right, so we have here. This is our biggest native insect, or one of our biggest native insects. This is the privet hawk moth. Look at that. That's an elephant hawk moth there. So there's 3 privets there, and also this is a lovely burnished brass there. We just see that's shining in the sun. Yeah, it's burnished brass. These privet hawk moths, their natural habitat is young ladies' noses. So if you close your eyes, Isabel, close your eyes, right? It's going to tickle a bit. But, there we go. I'm getting sad again. I'm filling up again. I haven't. It's just lovely to see. Lovely to see people getting involved in moth trapping there. I haven't done a public event for so long. Really missing it. But as you saw me put my moth on Isabel's nose there, it's certainly an ambition of mine to put hawk moth on the nose of every child in Sussex. So I've had a year out, but when I come back next time, I'll be back with a vengeance, putting hawk moths on children's noses all across the county. I put this picture in because my friend took this picture, and I was opening a moth trap with some kids there. I was telling them about how great moths are. I was telling them about how moths are very harmless, what wonderful, lovely, gentle creatures they are. And my friend said, as he was filming me and photographing me, I went very quiet, which is very unusual for me, as you would know. And he wondered why I went quiet. Basically, what happened, I opened the moth trap, and a moth flew straight out, went straight to my mouth. And I didn't want to sort of scare the children, so I swallowed it. Where it was kind of went right back into my throat. So so that's a picture of me there swallowing a moth. It's probably a real rare one as well. I can't remember how it tasted, but yeah, this isn't something I make a habit of. But yeah, that was me, a worried look on my face, a man swallowing a moth. Now I thought I'd end just because some of the most exciting moths we see in Sussex are migrant moths. Now in the autumn, we saw a lovely talk last night by Matt Eade about bird migration in the autumn, the birds heading out of Sussex. Well, in the autumn, we have moths heading into the county. And of course, being on the coast here, we have some incredible moths coming in. And it's when you can find some real rarities. Now, silver-wise, migrant moths, which come in all through the year, in their millions, they come across the channel. You'll find tiny little moths like the diamondback moth, as well as some real whoppers. This is the convolvulus hawk moth, a real big hawk moth that flies in some years. My friend Ralph, he plants Nicotiana in his garden because that's what this moth feeds on with its huge proboscis. Now, you can just make it out in the picture there. In Ralph's garden, the convolvulus hawk moth, you see that huge drinking straw going down into his flowers. Amazing. And Steve got a picture. I think this moth is unfortunately found dead, but this is a real rarity in the county. And it does turn up from time to time, the oleander hawk moth. What a beauty. Look at that. I took this picture near Eastbourne, in fact, from my moth trap one autumn. Look at the antennae on the amazing gypsy moth. And probably one of my favourite finds, myself and Graham Lyons up on the Beachy Head a few years ago. And we found this migrant moth. Look at that, the crimson speckled. What a stunner. Look at that. But you find some weird things too. Now, this is one evening at my moth trap in near Friston Forest. This thing turned up. It couldn't even get in the trap. It was so big. This is an Indian moon moth. Real. Look at that. Now, it hasn't flown from India. It's it's probably come from someone's collection or some zoo or something. I don't know where. Maybe it flew from Drusillus or something. But yeah, it's quite surprised to see it. And I put it back on a bush and it flew off into the Eastbourne night. No idea where it went. One evening, I found this in the moth trap. I knew what it was straight away. Very distinctive moth. The flame brocade. I also knew it was a real rarity. You see this very rarely as a migrant moth in Sussex. And myself and Graham Lyons went out one evening around Beachy Head, and we were amazed to find quite a few flame brocades. It turns out the flame brocade was actually breeding in the area. It's returned to the county after an absence, returned to the country after an absence of about 130 years. So this moth used to be found around Lewes. It was last seen around Lewes before it went extinct in Britain, but we found it again around Beachy Head. So a really exciting find, the flame brocade. Now, I made a bit of a mistake because I was asked again if I'll get involved in a press release about the flame brocade. And the last press release about the scarlet tiger didn't go too well, but I said I'll do it. And I thought no one's interested in a story about a moth. It turns out people were interested in a story about a moth. I woke up in October 2011. I woke up and it was headline news everywhere, all over the internet. Yeah, amazing. This bit here is in all the newspapers. This is a piece feature in the Guardian. It made me laugh a bit because it said Michael Blencowe and his friend Graham Lyons. Now, Graham, I'm sure people know Graham, is a great ecologist. And he was like, "What's this friend, Graham Lyons? Yeah, it sounds like he's like my sidekick or something." So I love that. I thought that was great. But yeah, I don't think Graham was too impressed. But it was in the Express. There was a picture here, a cartoon of moth invasion with a guy with all holes in his shirt. That was the Daily Mail, of course. It's all the papers had features about flame brocades and migrant moths. It was amazing. All over the internet, there was my friends in New Zealand. So I just saw you on the New Zealand website over here. Here's a story from Italy. I love this. That Michael Blencowe, a dal su amico Graham. I love that. Again, I don't think Graham was too impressed with all that. Anyone from Germany watching tonight? I was described here as a Schmetterlingsschutz, whatever. I'm not sure what that means. So if anyone speaks German, just please leave that in the comments. So I never quite worked out what that is. So lots of news stories. This one here, that's not a flame brocade. That's a death's head hawk moth. But this one here, look, Mr. Blencowe, 40. Well, why is that important? Why is my age important? But it's a big news. So then the ITV weatherman phone. So can I use your moth as the background for the ITV weather? And then the BBC News phone and said, would you come and do a story about this on the BBC News? I said, I don't want to get involved with that, but Graham said he'd do it. So actually, I thought if Graham's going to do it, I'll do it as well. So so I ended up talking about moths and migrant moths on the BBC. Amazing, really. It's amazing to think, looking at the news over the past year, that all that's going on. There was a time once when moths were big news, were the headlines. And hopefully soon, folks, this will all quieten down. We'll return to normal, and there will be a time again when moths will be the big news story. It'll be the highlight of the week. So that's the end of the talk. I've no idea what time it is. I'm just going to find out. Claire, what time is it? Okay, all right. So doing okay. I talked for way too long. So thank you to everyone whose photos I've used tonight. All my best mates, all my best mothing mates. So thank you for those using the photos. And now what was I going to do? I was going to do a Q&A session, but I think I've talked for too long. And also, there's 260 comments and questions, and I think if I go through them, if I sit and do it, it's going to take me forever to do that. So I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll have a glass of something, some wine or something in a minute, and I'll go through your questions and I'll answer them on the website tomorrow. So if you click on the main SWT website, I'll go through your questions and answer them tomorrow. So thank you for your question. I haven't seen them yet, but it's going to be chaos to try and read through all those.